Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night at the local time. And the most important events are coming from Moscow, the capital of Russian Federation, to be more precise from the northwestern part of the city, from the Crocus City Hall. This is the Crocus City Hall. As you can see, this is a very big, there are a lot of buildings, there's a very big parking, and people usually visit this area during the weekends, holidays, in the evenings. There are lots of shops, there are a lot of places people can have some fun, to rest with the families and so on. So usually there are around let's say 100, maybe thousands, tens of thousands people, maybe more, visit this area every single day, including the Friday evenings. Friday evenings probably the let's say the most concentrated time when there are so many people. And during the previous night, some terrorist forces started their attack. We have a lot of geolocations, a lot of videos, so let's discuss them step by step. And this is probably the first photo at the beginning of that special operation conducted by the terrorists. On this photo we can see just a Renault, white Renault, and the two persons in front. According to information we have, there were around six terrorist soldiers, and now we see just two of them. And this photo was made when the terrorists were heading towards the Crocus City Hall. So the terrorists were moving something like this. And the next thing we can see is the photo, the video of the beginning of that terrorist attack. This is the photo, this is the video not of the terrorist from the terrorist machine. This is just a regular civilian who was moving towards the Crocus City Hall. In front of us we can see a taxi car, and after the taxi car we can see this white Renault, and they stopped and start attacking after they left the Renault. So the operation started at the very beginning. There were no let's say lack or let's say gap between leaving the car and entering the Crocus City Hall. They start attacking the Russians exactly as they arrived in the area. And the first bodies, the first losses among civilians we can find at the beginning even of this situation. So they start killing people on the streets, and they were moving very slowly, step by step, inside of the building, and they were trying not to miss anyone. They were trying to make as many as possible casualties. And for example, on this video we can see the beginning also of the operation. Three terrorists, and they were attacking people, a lot of casualties, a lot of at the beginning of that terrorist attack the sources reported about 15 losses, then there were 40 losses. And for example, by the morning of today, according to, let's say, at 8 a.m. of the local time, the Russian authorities reported about losses of 82 people, including 3 kids. So the terrorists entered the building, they were attacking people, and nobody could resist them. There were basically no one who could, let's say, counterattack them or do anything. But as soon as the first shootings appeared, the Russians sent their special forces and start, let's say, counterattack, a special operation. First day, according to information we received, they blocked the area and so on. On this video we can see, as I understand, the final destination point of the terrorists. This is a very big hall, as you can see, with a lot of seats. Maybe this is the cinema hall, maybe this is the area where people have some, I don't know, let's say artists or some singers sing their songs or something like this. But terrorists start attacking people. The first people didn't understand what was happening, so they were shocked. They didn't know what to do. They weren't instructed, and they start running away from the area. And according to information we have, few terrorists were staying, let's say, at the doors and basically were shooting at the running people. And later we got so with the main purpose of entering that point, that was probably the point on the top of this building, the terrorists tried and wanted to set that building on fire. And they set the building on fire, and they were planning to by setting the building on fire, they were planning to achieve a significant number of losses, not just as a result of terrorist attack, but also as a result of smoke and as a result of fire. And according to information we have, yes, this method worked, and a lot of people, let's say, just died as a result of fire or something like this. They were blocked in the buildings, and there were no, let's say, air to breathe, so that caused also significant losses. And after that, after the Russians, let's say, saw the fire, they start trying to out the fire, and lots of helicopters were working. And during the next few hours, the Russians were mainly concentrated on that. And the fire allowed, first of all, for the terrorists to leave the area, let's say, the same way as they entered. The Russians managed to capture, let's say, by somewhere at night, let's say at 3 a.m. of the local time. There was a first video confirming that the Russians managed to capture one terrorist. He was arrested, then he was sent and moved to investigators. Very likely he has already provided the necessary information. Obviously, he told everything the Russians needed. And the sources are saying that later some sources provided details how this terrorist was captured. And the terrorist also was captured in the final destination point in that halt with lots of seats. The sources are saying that this terrorist was staying in front of the door that people were trying to use to run away from the hall, and he was attacking people, and people didn't understand what was happening. And one of the men from the hall attacked this terrorist without any weapon. He just attacked him. He managed to take his gun, and just a regular civilian managed to take his gun, and he started attacking this man with gun in his face. So that's why he just was, let's say, he lost his mind, and he just fell asleep or something like this, how to say in English. So, and that was why the Russian special forces managed to capture these terrorists. But later, during let's say this morning, we received additional details, and according to information we have, the Russians managed to capture 2 terrorists, and now there is like investigation process with them. Also this morning, the Russians special forces published the first video and the first footage from inside of the building. Lots of investigation, special forces making investigation, trying to find bullets, trying to create the chronology of the situation, trying to understand how did that happen, who's responsible, and many other things. But once again, and the most important, that the terrorists managed to enter the area, managed to set the building on fire, and the most important, that the terrorists managed to leave the area the same way they came, on the same car, by the way. For example, according to information we have, this is the video of car that was leaving the Crocus City Hall and was heading in a known direction. And we can say that those were the final updates of the morning, let's say 2-3 a.m. of the local time. And the next updates we start receiving somewhere at 9 a.m. of the local time. And according to them, the terrorists, first of all, we got the final number of losses, 82 among civilians, and then we start receiving updates that the terrorists, after they left Moscow, they start movement in direction of the border with Ukraine. So they were moving something like this, and they were trying to escape, and they were trying to get to the border with Ukraine, and try to cross the border and to get on the territory of Ukraine. And according to information we have, this morning the Russians have already blockaded the region. They stopped the movements, they stopped the movements of civilians. They tried to capture and not to allow these terrorists to enter the territory of Ukraine, because after that they will not be able to get them ever, and they will not be able to get the answer who was they were just executors, but who was paying for this, and who ordered that operation. So obviously today the Russians will try to capture the terrorists. Very likely the Russians are going to do this, and after that we will receive information who was responsible for that attack, and after that obviously we're going to receive some message from Vladimir Putin. But anyway, this only the fact that the terrorists were heading towards the border of Ukraine, I think is not very pleasant thing for the Ukrainians, even if they have no connection to the situation. Anyway, this movement to the Ukrainian border make people think that Ukraine has 100%, let's say, involvement in that terrorist attack. And when talking about the opinion of different countries, of different people, of course, I'll remind you that a few weeks ago, the US Embassy published the information on their, let's say, website, and they were saying that the embassy is monitoring reports that extremists have imminent plans to target large gatherings in Moscow, to include concerns, and the US citizens should be advised to avoid large gatherings over the next 48 hours. After this post was published, probably the terrorists decided to postpone the attack, and they attacked just a few weeks later. Maybe the sources are saying that, some sources are saying that the United States of America knew about that attack, but they basically couldn't stop those who were planning to do this. So that's why they published this information. And so a lot of theories, and I believe we're going to receive a lot of them in the future. For example, when talking about the Ukrainian, let's say, representatives of Ukrainian authorities, in their first comments, they blamed Russia for terrorist attack. The terrorist attack in the Moscow region is deliberate provocation of the Putin regime, which the international community warned about. The main Directorate of Intelligence representative Yusuf, the press secretary of the head of the presidential office, Zariana, wrote about the same thing. The events in Moscow are the handwriting of the Russian Special Service. And old, remembered, and many different stupid things she was talking about. So the Ukrainians, in their manner, was blaming Russia in that terrorist attack. Well, of course, the first country who said that they have nothing with this, with this, was the United States of America. The White House claims that it had no information about the preparation of a terrorist attack in Moscow. But once again, I'll remind you that just 2 weeks before that attack, the United States Embassy published information asking the civilians to avoid the large gathering over the next 48 hours. So they knew for sure. And lots of opinion we're going to receive today, lots of different opinion from different sources. But I agree with the words of the president of Serbia, Vučić. He told very smart things, and I would like to, let's say, read what he was saying. He said that some other embassies did that later. He was talking about the posts on the let's say, embassy webpage of the United States of America. Some other embassies did that later. I remember that the second was Germany, then probably the United Kingdom, then many others, which means their services intercepted certain conversations, and they knew it was going to happen. In any case, a tragic event which has incalculable consequences. Some will say there are Islamists, some will say Kiev, some will even say that Moscow did it. However, there is no doubt that there will be further escalation of the conflict in Ukraine, approaching a general war. And once again, and probably the most dramatic and the most unexpected thing, is that terrorists were heading towards the border with Belgorod, with Ukraine, and let's say in Chernihiv and Sumy area. Obviously, very likely they will be captured. If they are not going to be captured, anyway, the Russians have already captured 2 more terrorists. They will receive an information, the Russians will summarize everything, they will get the strong evidence, and after that something big is going to happen. So we'll see what is going to be next. Anyway, Military Summary Channel condemns any violence in the Crocus City Hall. This is a very bad strategy, and that I suppose that those who let's say ordered or executed that operation should be punished, not just by authorities, but I believe but with the global power or something, space power or whatever you like, should be punished. It shouldn't be like this. Now let's move to the situation on the ground. We have few updates, mainly because the Russian war journalists were mainly concentrated on Moscow in this terrorist attack. So we just received few updates, some FPV drones from the Ukrainian side, and the most important is that the Russians continue movements from Toninka towards to the west, and according to pro-Ukrainian mappers, the Russians managed to establish complete control over this big trenches line and to reach the outskirts of this tree line. So if we add some polygons, this approximated Russian progress. But as you can see, the Ukrainian still shows that the fields between Toninka and let's say Vadiane, Pesk is still under Ukrainian control, but very likely today this area also will be cleared. Not like cleared, but Ukrainians probably will abandon their positions, and let's say in the next 24-48 hours, this is going to be approximately the Russian progress in Russian controlled territory. Chasiv Yar, nothing. So when talking about other front lines, nothing special, because mainly people were discussing and talking about the situation in Moscow. If you ask my opinion, it's now people regarding the losses, regarding whether that was done by the Ukrainians or that was done by somewhere else. The important thing is that now people in Russia are ready for everything. They are not like ready for everything. Now people in Russia can allow Putin to do whatever he likes. If Putin wants to declare war, then it's not Putin wants to. It's Russian society wants it. So anything can happen next, and the escalation will be. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.